it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be chatting through my Reading Rush TBR, which I am so jazzed about. I don't know, I've been participating in the Reading Rush now since probably the beginning, close to the beginning of my YouTube career. It's something that I just think is really fun. I love watching everyone else's reading vlogs. I'm personally definitely gonna be vlogging, and it's just an excuse to do nothing else but read. Before I jump into more information about the Reading Rush as well as my TBR, I first want to chat about this video's sponsor, which is Skillshare. I have been a longtime ambassador for Skillshare. I'm a huge fan. If you guys are not familiar, Skillshare is an online learning resource. It's essentially a way to consume and watch thousands of different classes across a variety of different verticals. I have watched things from programming to digital marketing to productivity and organization. My personal favorite niche is definitely within the cooking genre and field. I've definitely watched a lot of cooking-based videos, making the perfect dough to how to brew the perfect cup of coffee. Last two classes I have taken were how to grill and knife cuts, which were honestly super helpful. It also made me really want to buy a cast iron skillet to, grill my veggies on a grill. But anyway, the two new classes I'm about to actually take though, I'm very excited about. One is a beef related class, which is kind of gonna, in my mind, extend a lot of what I learned from my grilling class, as well as a cocktail making class, because I'm always looking to acquire new skills, and a cocktail skill just sounds like a lot of fun. But yeah, I am a huge fan of this service. It's awesome just to kind of see and learn a bunch of new things. A lot of their original classes are super high quality. The video is like so clear and so crisp, and the people that they have speaking about a lot of these topics are experts in their field, which is really awesome. I do have a promo code for you guys, which I'll have linked down below. The first 1,000 people to click the link will be able to get 2 months free of premium Skillshare. After that, it's about $10 a month. Big shout out to Skillshare for working with me for this video. I'm a huge fan. But now let's jump back into the Reading Rush TBR. So the Reading Rush takes place from July 20th to July 26th. It's a week-long readathon. There are a bunch of challenges and different things you can do. So I'll have their website linked down below as well as their announcement video. For me, as a readathon reader, I love readathons. When it comes to challenges though, I love to partake, but I'm also kind of someone who force fits their existing TBR they already had in mind to the challenges, which is kind of like the spirit of a readathon in my opinion. You can kind of approach challenges and different aspects of a readathon and make them work for you. So everything is very moldable and all of that. So I personally had a TBR of things I already wanted to read and kind of made it work for a lot of the challenges for this readathon. So the first challenge is to read a book that has the color of your birthstone on the cover. So for this, I'm going with The Girl Who Drank the Moon. This is a middle grade fantasy novel, and I was born in the month of July, and the cover as well as the inside flap are red, which matches my birthstone, ruby. This is a book I've had on my TBR for a while, and I'm just like really in the middle grade mood, and I also feel like middle grade is a great thing to read during a readathon. I feel like I read them much faster, they tend to be shorter, the font also transparently tends to be larger, but this is a fantasy novel that I picked up I think last year and have been wanting to read ever since. It won the Newbery Award, so I know a lot of people like this as well. So this is set in a fantasy world where essentially a town every year sacrifices and leaves a small child in the forest near their town to essentially appease what they think is an evil witch from terrorizing everyone else who lives there. But in reality, this witch is actually very kind and friendly, and she takes these children in and essentially finds new homes for them on the other side of this forest. However, one year, one of the children that they leave within the forest, she accidentally feeds the child moonlight instead of starlight, which gives this girl magical abilities, and she begins to raise this child on her own. As this young girl, Luna, begins to grow up, and as she approaches her 13th birthday, she basically has to learn to grapple with her magical abilities from the help of her mother, as well as a young boy from the neighboring town basically decides that he's going to try to save his village from this evil witch and goes on a quest into this forest to try to destroy Luna and her mother. This fantasy story has really called out to me. It sounds really intriguing. I personally love this idea of magical forests and this obvious misunderstanding that is at the root of the story as well. I feel like this is going to be really beautiful. It's already won a bunch of awards, and I feel like it's gonna be a perfect read for a readathon. I'm actually going to listen to the audiobook of this. The audiobook of this novel is on Scribd. So I picked this as well because I feel like I can listen to it during my work day and be able to get reading in while like in between meetings and things and have it playing while I'm doing work. So that is also kind of the format I plan to read this book in, which is the audiobook, which I actually am looking forward to because I feel like it's going to be a beautiful audiobook as well. Next challenge is to read a book on a different continent than the one that you're currently residing on. So I have about 4 fantasy novels on this TBR, and I'm gonna say those all qualify for this particular challenge because they take place on an entirely different world than the one I'm currently living in. But to quickly talk about 2 of the fantasy novels I hope to read, the first one is The Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is a novel I don't necessarily think I'll be able to read the entirety of during this 1-week readathon, especially given that I have 5 books on this TBR. That being said though, I really want to get a good chunk of this read throughout the week. Particularly, I think I'm gonna set like daily page goals and just try to read about 50 or so pages of this a day with the hopes that by the end of the month I'll be able to finish it or finish it early in August. This of course is the 3rd and final book to the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. It's one that I've been reading since the start of this year and have been really enjoying. It follows our main character Fitz and we follow him growing up within the first one, encountering kind of political life and magic. The first one we follow him growing up within the kingdom and within the king's castle. He's essentially the bastard son of one of the princes. Because of this, he's very much ostracized from day-to-day court life, and he also is then used sort of as a political pawn and is trained to be an assassin. We follow him through that journey as well as encountering a variety of different magic, as well as being forced to make some very difficult decisions from his own like personal life to his political life and his loyalty. I again really enjoyed the first 2. The second one particularly was very strong and very fast paced. So I'm hoping to again start this and try to read about 50 or so pages a day, and I'm really looking forward to it. The next fantasy novel I'm going to talk about is The King's Traitor by Jeff Wheeler. This is the 3rd book in the King Fountain series, and I feel like I've read a couple King Fountain series books and readathons pass and read them really quickly, which is why I thought it would be good to include a novel by Jeff Wheeler in this readathon. This series I've also always read at the same time as reading Robin Hobb's books, and they're very similar in like a vibe way, but this also follows our main protagonist Owen, and we also follow him growing up throughout these novels. And the second one I really felt like escalated this story from a political aspect. The first one you're really following Owen as a child growing up. He's also a political hostage and you see him kind of try to navigate those court politics. The magic within this world is really interesting. It's essentially being fountain blessed, which essentially means an individual is really exceptional at something. The second novel, the politics really expand beyond just the castle, and you're seeing a lot of, I guess, retaliation as well as some really big escalation to politics that have been simmering for a long time. I really loved a lot of the choices that were made in the second novel, so I'm excited to see the consequences of those play out in this 3rd one. I'm very attached to a lot of the characters within this series, and again, they're not very long, and I feel like they're a perfect fantasy series for a readathon. Because I don't know, they're paced really well, and they're just not one that like, it's not like the Farseer trilogy where that book is like probably 800 pages. This is like a good 350, so I really do feel like I can read the whole thing during this week. The next challenge is read a book with "the" in the title, and that is going to be The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which we've already chatted about, but does qualify for this particular challenge as well. Next challenge is read a book that you first touch. First book I actually grabbed off of my bookshelf when I was making this TBR was Arusha in the End of Time. This is a middle grade novel I've had on my shelf for so long, and one that I've been so excited to read and just haven't gotten to. This is part of the Rick Riordan Presents, which is essentially a bunch of middle grade stories about different mythology from around the world. This particular novel is about Indian folklore and mythology, and I've just heard such amazing things, and I think the 3rd one is coming out. I love middle grade adventure stories. I love magic and friendship and saving the day, and I feel like this is going to have all of that wrapped into one amazing book. This follows our main character Arusha, who attends a very elite and prestigious boarding school full of very well-to-do children, and because of this she tends to tell small lies to try to fit in with her classmates. Everyone jets away to very exciting international vacations during their spring break. Arusha is going to be spending it with her mother at the museum where she curates at, and when a group of students show up on Arusha's door and they don't believe her that a certain lamp within her mother's museum is cursed, she touches it and winningly releases the Sleeper, which is a demon set on reawakening the ancient god of destruction, which I believe sets off Haru on a mission to try to save the day. Again, I love middle grade stories. I especially love middle grade stories that are centered around mythology, and I love different gods and magic, and I hope there's going to be a lot of friendship. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this as well. And the last book on my TBR is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a rom-com romance story, which I also feel like is perfect for a readathon. I obviously have a lot of fantasy on this TBR, but I do feel like a lighter, fluffier romance story would be a perfect thing to read. One, because I feel like I'm going to need a break from a lot of the intensity I'm going to be reading, and two, I tend to read romance very quickly, but this follows Chloe Brown, who is a chronically ill computer geek with a goal and a plan and a list. She's basically made herself a list on how to get a life, something I can really relate to and really appreciate, that she's making a list to try to force herself outside of her comfort zone. But the list is enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, have a meaningless and thoroughly enjoyable hookup, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. I hear this book is so fun. I hear it has great humor, a great romance. I think it's a hate to love romance as well, which chef's kiss, that tends to always be my favorite. But yeah, I feel like this will be a book I will fly through, perfect for a readathon. It's also on my July TBR, so it's obviously a priority for the month and for this week of reading as well. Alrighty, and the last two challenges that I am going to be successfully completing, manifesting that for this readathon, is one, read a book from a genre that you want to read more of. For that, I'm going to use the middle grade that I have selected within this readathon to complete. I haven't read a lot of middle grade this year at all, which is actually personally really surprising, so I'm trying to fix that, and I have two books that I'm super pumped to be reading to fulfill this particular challenge. And the last one is to read a book completely outdoors. For me, I live in New York City, and for a lot of obvious reasons, I don't have access to outdoors very easily. So for this, I'm actually going to read next to my window on my couch and listen to ocean ambiance sounds while I read. One, because I've been really into listening to music, both classical and like ambiance noises with my noise canceling headphones. I have been reading so much more because of it. It's just such a pleasant experience. And two, I just feel like it'll, transport me possibly to other places I wish I was versus my small New York City apartment. So that is how I'm going to be completing that challenge. Alrighty guys, that is my Reading Rush TBR. Again, I'll have a lot of information down below if you're interested in learning more about this particular readathon. Curious to know what you guys are planning to read, so please leave some comments with your TBRs if you're participating. And again, thank you to Skillshare for partnering with me for this video, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!